Hello friends, it's your buddy Nick here with Game with the Guys. We're hanging out with Speldexia this time. We're on the Road of Sacrifices heading to the Cathedral of the Deep here in Dark Souls 3. And as we come up this way, I believe you'll be able to see, yep, and there's a fellow with a cage there. We'll get a closer look in just a minute, but we got a couple of little guys to hit up here first. There's a pair of crystal lizards if you pop down this way. And we'll get the second one right here. And they both drop Twinkling Titanite. And as we come around here, we'll notice down below that there is an evangelist. So let's take the time, be cautious, and let's get in a good hit while these guys are not paying attention. Oh, jeez. I didn't have my weapon ready. I was trying to do my L1 attacks, but I still had my shield out. I was looking at her and not looking at myself. So here we get the Herald armor. And if we take a look at this, hopefully none of these guys comes up and tries to attack me while I'm looking at this. Steel armor with a pure white cape, the signature of heralds of the Way of the White. Protection made of steel has excellent physical absorption, but is found lacking against blunt strikes and lightning damage. So there does appear to be some evidence of the Way of the White still existing, and that is the beginning armor of the Herald class. And if we look very closely at this guy, his whole cage is filled with nicely wrapped corpses. Those are likely sacrifices heading to the cathedral. Oh, right, some rubbish! It's completely worthless. In Dark Souls 1 it actually did have a use, but it was just something you could trade with the crow. But in Dark Souls 3, there doesn't seem to be a use as of yet. Maybe someone will discover one. So now we can rest here, and we're getting closer to the cathedral. We're following the Road of Sacrifices. Way back there, we can still see Lothric Castle. And right around the corner here, there's going to be a fellow in the, what is this, the Forgotten Knight armor? He's not paying attention to me. I find with, oh, I hit the wall there. That really messed up my float. Alright. Do I still have some of that armor on me? I really like that armor. Oh, I've thrown it. I've thrown it in my my storage box. Here we have the Paladin Ashes. Let's take a look at that. So the Paladin Ashes, these unlock the Undead Hunter's Charm, the Dual Charm, Morning Star, Crescent Axe, Canvas Talisman, and Lloyd's Shield Ring. If we read the description here, it says, Umbral Ash of a worn-out Paladin who sought the Cathedral of the Deep. With this, the Shrine Handmaid will prepare new items. This paladin paid quite a price for his headstrong justice. And if you look there, it looks like it's holding an Undead Hunter Charm, so that would kind of tie this to the Way of the White, or some of the clerics that followed Allfather Lloyd, maybe the clerics in Dark Souls 1 that were from Thurland, and it kind of seems that, he was on his way over to the Cathedral of the Deep. It says headstrong justice. He probably had something like a cease and desist order from the Way of the White, as being like, hey guys, we don't like what you're doing here. You need to shut that down. So that's probably what was going on with that paladin. And I believe it says on here, oh, I thought it said something in here about a duty, but, oh, this is the Herald, okay. Oh, here it is, okay. Leather gloves said to be worn by heralds of the Way of the White who deliver commandments of duty. So that paladin, this paladin, the clerics, they're probably, the duty that's probably listed is coming to the Cathedral of the Deep and trying to, like, shut everything down, because we know that it's becoming infested by the abyss, in a sense. There's a strong influence from the deep, and we'll later see that there is a dark influence here, and that's probably what all of these clerics and paladins are coming to talk about. And by talk, I mean bash with their cleric weapons. This is the Crest Shield, and this one actually differs from the Crest Shield from Dark Souls 1, though it looks very much the same. A knight shield engraved with a crest, one of the enchanted blue shields. The Crest Shield greatly reduces dark damage. And the Crest Shield in Dark Souls 1 was actually a strong defender against magic damage. And this has decent magic defense, but it's primarily dark defense. So it actually makes sense that it is near the Cathedral of the Deep. Somebody was probably wanting to have some dark defense here, and, well, they got killed along the way. And we saw that Henri actually carries this sword, and by sword I mean shield. And in Dark Souls 1, it was Oscar of Astora that had the Crest Shield, and we actually would get it from... Hey. We would actually get the Crest Shield from the hollowed out version of Oscar. If this guy would stand still, that'd be great. And I could just take him out right here. And he will drop the Spider Shield. And this is a carryover from Dark Souls 1. That guy was actually pretty much just a bandit from Dark Souls 1. And this was part of the starting bandit class equipment. There's a shield bearing a large etching of a spider. Shields of this style are commonly used by savage mountain bandits and offer high resistance to poison. And you can see it actually has very high stability for a shield of its size. Very low weight, but very good stability. The physical absorption is a little lacking, but this is actually a shield that Spelldexia is going to hold on to for reasons. You'll see those reasons. And this next area here is just annoying, and it's stupid, and there is no reason to spend any time in here whatsoever. There is one item, it is right there, and it is just some souls. So, we're just going to run through and hope that we don't get hit too badly. It's best to kind of take the low route here. That'll help you dodge some of the arrows, and there's fewer dogs down here, and this will let you out right by this door, and we can just keep on running. And there's probably a dog following us. Oh, there's two. And so if you want to spend time in there, by all means do it. It is a complete waste of time. Here we have a little hollow and torn up cleric's gear, and he has a very special attack. He lights himself on fire, and you'll see that he blows up and he does a lot of damage. So it's a good idea to avoid those fellows. And now we're here at the Cathedral of the Deep. We see some of these clerical hollows hanging out and praying. And we're going to enter here. This is called the Cleansing Chapel. And it's very church-like. And before I get too far in there, I did want to just take another look at the red bug pellet. And, you know, it says, to ease their suffering when they burn. And, well, we saw him burn. So now it's, you know, very just little chapel, lots of chairs. You can smash through all of these. But over here is an interesting item. This is the Notched Whip. And I talked a little bit about whips before when we picked up the regular whip. This one does a lot of bleed damage. A whip with thorny spikes that shred skin, causing heavy bleeding. The cleansing chapel uses whips such as these in order to produce the drops and puddles to wipe clean during its rituals. So it seems that there's some sort of blood rituals going on here. Hard to say, really. But a notched whip like this could also be used for self-flagellation. And self-flagellation is basically, I don't want to say it's the art, it's the practice of usually harming oneself in order to relieve yourself from sin or wrongdoing. And it's most commonly used as a way of punishing yourself and relieving yourself of sin. So you'll see it a lot with strangely devout people. And I mean strangely because it is not a common practice, but it is not unheard of. And here at the altar, we have a statue with deacons here, appearing to be holding chimes, but if you look very closely, they are hollow. So it's interesting that this was designed with hollowed out deacons as opposed to standard looking people. A lot of time with sculptures and whatnot, you would see the physical form rather than hollow forms of people. And there are 8 below. I'm not sure if there's any significance to the 8, but there are 3 up above. And those are likely the higher up. There's 3 deacons that are higher up. They're closer to Aldrich, and we'll learn about them later. But that's probably the significance of the 3 up above. That and the number 3 tends to be a very common number in, religious texts and whatnot. I accidentally ran off before I talked about this little tidbit here. We have another statue built behind the deacon's altar. And now this appears to be a woman in a nun's habit, and she's covering her face with her hand there. Now, it's difficult to say whether this is a person or a god, or a goddess, I should say, but it just appears that this was part of the original structure, and then this deacon's altar was pushed or built in front of it as a way of showing the new management here. But based on the look of this, I would have to speculate that this is probably a statue of Catha. And the hand covering the face kind of signifies that she's crying. And we know that Catha is heavily associated with tears. And we'll also see that, Morn is a prominent figure here, as he was an apostle of the archbishop, and he was a follower of Catha. So it's possible that this is actually a statue of Catha, and that after Morn is gone, we don't know whatever happened to Morn, but after he went away, these deacons put this up in its stead, and Catha was forgotten about. So, sorry I forgot about that, but let's get back to the mission at hand. Here we have a well. It's just a well, right? It's just a well. I find this rather interesting in the sense that we don't often see obelisks. And here is a group of clerics or devotees, and they are all praying to this obelisk. And I can't say that I know why. The only thing I can think of is that this actually has a minutely similar shape to an icon that is within the cathedral. But obelisks very much tend to be associated with ancient Egypt. And we cannot shoot this crow, but we're seeing images of hollowed deacons. Here is an obelisk, a crow. Now the crows, these might not really mean anything. They might just be hanging out in this cemetery here. And there are a number of undead, and they will regenerate indefinitely. So there's a very particular path that I like to take in here. And not all of them are hostile. A lot of them are, but not all. This guy I can't even click on. He's also looking at this obelisk. And he might be kind of looking at the person holding the Astora Greatsword. So I'm not going to take a look at this item until we are in a more safe location. There are just too many enemies here for me to spend time looking at descriptions. This guy I can't click on, but he appears to be, well, given whatever angle, he appears to be bashing his head on the rocks, though he is not making actual contact. And down here we'll see a lot of these hollows digging themselves up out of the ground. And we do have quite a number of these obelisks hanging out in this area. Now, these could just be, you know, tombs or gravestones for very particular people, but there's not really a real way of saying. Here we have a very cool weapon, the Executioner's Greatsword, and as we come down here, we are just absolutely swarmed with these hollows. And some of them change into these mutated grub hollows, and we're going to do our best to just get out of here, because at this point now, the hollows are going to become very aggressive. And there's no need to sit around and waste your energy on these guys, because they will just continue to spawn indefinitely. And now I'm just going to come up along here. And if you'll notice here on the right, oh, a white birch. Very interesting. And straight across there we have... Oh! I was looking... I clicked... I got the wrong guy. That was a grave mistake. And you'll see that he's doing blood buildup on us. And he's got some friends here. Well, he's got paired weapons and I do too, so I'll take a moment to just take him out. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about him also. I'm not quite in a safe area yet. I believe if I come up here I'll be safe. And from here we can see the front doors of the Cathedral of the Deep. And I'm not going to go that direction at this point. I actually want to travel back around and head into some of these little nooks and crannies over here, but I did want to look at some of these weapons. So first off, we'll go in order of what we found. The Astora Greatsword. This greatsword, bestowed only upon elite knights, is a relic of the ruined land of Astora. Designed for a focus on thrust attacks, this sword is hard and sharp, but not unusually heavy. This is a unique sword to the Ultra Greatsword class. This is much lighter than any of the other Ultra Greatswords. The damage is, I would say, a little bit lower, but the weight and its interesting moveset, I think, make up for that. It actually is a pretty good scaling sword for if you wanted to infuse it with, you know, a crystal infusion or a lightning infusion. It scales really well with magic or faith. Also, doing a refined infusion makes this a quite the weapon. So another thing that's pretty unique is that this is the only Ultra Greatsword with the charge attack, and that is more commonly seen on lances. And it is pretty cool because it is a long, sharp, pointy sword. And we'll see if I can... You kind of see how he holds it like a lance there. And I just called Speldexia he. I apologize. This is another really cool greatsword. This is the Executioner's Greatsword. This was the greatsword of a debauched executioner used for beheading. So who is this debauched executioner? It's very possible that the corpse that we found was actually the executioner, and they were overcome by the hollows that that he probably put to death, and they came back and killed him. And right next to it, we did find a very small soul, and that might have been someone that he had just recently executed. So this one is super cool in that the sword retains a keen memory of its executioner's duty, which absorbs 3 focus points from each fallen foe. And with this one, another thing that's pretty unique about it is because it does have an inherent property to it, the focus point absorption, it can't be infused. But this one can still be buffed, which is pretty cool. That is not common for something to have an inherent property like that, but still be buffed. This is actually a pretty good weapon to use if you're using kind of a magic build or a faith build, and you just want a good strength weapon, because this will refill your focus points, and it scales predominantly with strength. It'll get up to a B scaling, and this one becomes a pretty solid weapon. It also does strike damage as opposed to slashing damage. And you'll see here, this does standard or thrust damage for a regular sword, and this one does strike damage. So it actually does damage like a mace. So this is actually a very good weapon to use against skeletons and heavily armored opponents. And I also wanted to take a look at some of the items that that fellow with the 2 weapons, he's called a Grave Warden. And he's a particular Grave Warden of the Cathedral of the Deep, and they have very cool equipment. If we take a look at the armor, it says, Grave Wardens were tasked with disposing of the ever-rising corpses that plagued the cathedral. Their clothes are utterly putrid, drenched in the blood and mucilage of their undertaking. So their job, as I mentioned with earlier Grave Wardens, is they're meant to keep down the ever-rising undead population. And then if we look at their weapon called the Twin Blades, the Grave Wardens of the Cathedral who put down the reincarnating corpses wield weapons that cause profuse bleeding, for the loss of blood and bodily fluid is said to slow reanimation. So they're given bleed weapons in order to keep down the population. It slows the regeneration, so that is the best way that they can keep the undead dead. And as I mentioned before, there is a white birch here. So any moment now we should be getting some assistance. Well, not close enough. We'll find some repair powder. You saw that I picked up the bone ash, and you see these guys here, and you'll notice that I'm getting bleed buildup right now. To get rid of that, equip a torch, and then it'll knock off all those little biting, nibbling grubs. We find a few souls hanging out, and then we can also get the young white branches. And the giant, we'll see. I don't know that we can really see him from here. Obviously, the undead settlement isn't too far. Oh, I was able to see an arrow coming in, and if we look back there, I'm trying to not be hit by these guys. You can actually see the giant from here. All right, and once again, here's a guy who isn't even hostile at all, but he could get in our way. And you'll notice that when I hit him, I didn't get any souls for it. Only the ones that are willing to attack you give you any souls. And we'll just run around over here and quickly duck behind here to grab a Titanite shard. And in here, there is a weapon, as this guy is just bent over a coffin here. This is called the Curse Ward Great Shield. And if you played Dark Souls 2, it will look very similar to the shield that was used by the Pursuer. In the Japanese version of Dark Souls 2, the Pursuer is actually called the Cursed One. So if we look at this Curse Ward shield, the great shield given to those who resisted the curse long ago. So the Pursuer, though he was called the Cursed One, somehow resisted the curse? I'm not really sure how that works out. But this is far too heavy for an ordinary person. Perhaps it signifies the foolishness of resisting the curse, and yet those who bear the weight of this shield will not find its protection against curses wanting. And down through here we will find a shortcut. So here's a little ladder that now we can use down at the bottom. But if you have a spook spell, it's just faster to come on down this way. And down in here we have these. Whoa! Here's one there. You see that this guy is basically just made out of those grubs. And they do a lot of the bleed damage. And that is why I have the torch at a ready. So that I can burn off those grubs. Also, those monsters are quite disturbed by fire, so you can hit them with a torch and they will kind of get stun locked. Right in here there's a ravenous crystal lizard. We'll come back for you in just a minute, but for now we'll take care of some of your little brothers. There's one here, and then around the corner there'll be another one, but we're gonna go up and grab this Titanite shard that's hanging out over here. And as I said, I'll go around the corner. There'll be another crystal lizard and another Titanite shard. So if you like upgrade materials, this is the place for you. So we round the bend, and there's a crystal lizard. Another twinkling Titanite. And right over here, another Titanite shard. I love how you put the torch away, it just goes out and lights back up. But there's a couple of these big guys down here, so it's best to initiate the battle with one before the second one comes into play. And they'll usually just leap at you like that, and you can jump under its attack or roll out of the way at the last minute, and then get your little torch swing in. It'll stun it. Then you can fight it fairly easily. Pretty easy to just go through and... But trust me, if you don't have a torch ready, they kind of suck. They really suck. Especially, any one of their hits will infest you with those grubs, and they will bleed you out 3 times. That was the Undead Bone Shard. Let's get to this new item here. Saint Tree Bellvine. So, Sacred Chime for casting Miracles of the Gods. A bellvine cut from a small saint tree that has been meticulously tended to. Saint Tree Bellvines are customary in the far north and allow for faster casting than ordinary Sacred Chimes. So I don't really know what a saint tree is, but they apparently help with casting speed. This doesn't have a very strong spell buff when you know, it doesn't scale well with faith, so your spell buff isn't going to get particularly high, but it basically works like using a Sage's Ring. Now, we can run back up here, and I'll go ahead and take on this crystal lizard in just a moment. Oh, there's some crystals just kind of rolling around. I was like, what is going on? This is what I want. Usually it'll remain calm until you get fairly close to it, and you can get some good attacks while it's trying to stand up, and these paired weapons do a very good job of stun locking it. So, quick work of that guy there. It looks like you can go one of these directions, but you can't. But you can tuck back here. And there is another one of these grub corpse monsters. And you'll see that it hates the fire. And it's trying, you can see that it's getting the grubs on me, but they're not sticking because I have the torch out. And that's pretty much the only reason why I have a torch in this game. But right over here, we'll get the poison bite ring. And this is a lot like the other bite rings that we found. Let me actually equip it right now, because the next spot that we're going is poisonous. So that's one of the reasons why I came here for Foist. One of the bite rings native to Kareem. It has the same description as the other bite rings. Once again, they are forbidden, but the clerics are like, whatever. We'll make them. It's cool. Don't worry about it. That might be part of the reason why the folks from the Way of the White are trying to come over and give them a stern talking to. Hey guys, don't make those bite rings anymore, and stop all this phooey with the dark. So that's my impression of the Way of the White. They're a bunch of goody two-shoes. So at this point, we're going to run back to Firelink. We got a few things to take care of there. First things first, let's go ahead and burn this bone shard and rank up our Estus. And we can come over here and give the handmaid some new umbral ash.
Gracious, passing fine ash thou'st given. Let this ash bestow nourishment. I only hope these new wares content thee.
So we can take a look at the new stuff here. Let's see. I don't know. She has a bunch of Uria stuff. I completely forgot about that. So these are new. And if we... Actually... I don't know that... I don't... Maybe she did... No, she did have prism stones before. I didn't have a note that she would start carrying those. But... so we get the Morning Star here. And the Crescent Axe. And you'll see that this was traditionally wielded by the Way of the White clerics. So that's kind of a little bit more proof that it was a Way of the White cleric that that left the ashes behind. Let's see. We've already looked at some of that stuff there. Here's the new thing here. Lloyd's Shield Ring. So there's a ring given to the Knights of the Way of the White. Depicts Allfather Lloyd's Shield of Cast. Boosts damage absorption when HP is full. And it doesn't have to be 100% full. It can be 99% full. But it will give you... it will reduce damage by 25% when you're over 99% health. So, I mean, it's kind of worthless. But it will keep you from being one-shot sometimes. Sometimes. But if we continue reading here, it says, much time has passed since the worship of Lloyd was common in the Way of the White. The clerics of Kareem have always strongly asserted that Lloyd was a derivative fraud and that the Allfather title was self-proclaimed. So, this Allfather status here, not...
Ashen one.
not one that he gained, one that he gave himself. And so, possibly the clerics from Kareem are an offshoot of the Way of the White. But, is there anything I want to reinforce? I do want to reinforce this for sure. And, oh, I'm using my Twinkling Titanite on my Grasscrest shield to boost its stability.
Prithee, be careful. I don't want to see my work squandered.
Ha 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 ha. All right, now, I believe that's everything I wanted to do here. Maybe I should get a level or two before I go. Just use up some of these souls.
Very well. Then touch the darkness, take no.
I'll just skip through her dialogue there. And let's see. I always like a little bit of... Can I get 3? I can get 3. That's nice. Let's do endurance. We'll do dexterity and intelligence. Perfect.
Farewell, Maid of Flame.
And just want to make sure that I'm good on arrows. Because now we're heading over to Farron Keep. Here we are in Farron Keep, and I actually have to apologize for a little bit of misinformation. I totally expected to continue on going through here, but it turns out that the episode was closing in on 2 hours, so I felt like this was actually a good spot to cut it off. So thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button. If you've got any questions or comments, concerns about the lore that we've discussed, please hit the comment button and tell us about it. Also, if you are enjoying these playthroughs and videos, share it with your friends that you think would also enjoy it. All of that stuff really helps me out. So thanks again for watching. We will see you next time.